Welcome to this week's Oregon Minute. This week we are interviewing Dan Donoghue of the Chocolate Caper to see how his business has adapted to the forward day and reopening plan. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, trying to hang in there. So Dan, and we talked about this about a week ago, and I wrote a story about it for The Observer. But first, how has the Chocolate Caper continued to adapt to the county's reopening plan?
As the reopening plan has come out, we've sort of evaluated it and then put some additional layers on top of it. So phase one, where we can open, we're still just sort of watching and observing. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that everything is as safe as possible. So we're almost following a step behind the phases of the health department, where we're going to watch for 7 to 14 days, mm-hmm. see how everyone's doing, see how the metrics are doing, and then start to open up again to the public. We've adapted and we're doing curbside pickup, delivery, we're shipping. Our website's been dramatically updated. And then within the Caper, we're always very stringent about hygiene and cleaning and disinfecting, but we've just taken that to a whole, you're hard pressed to go around and not see a bottle of disinfectant everywhere. And we're doing it a lot more often and wearing gloves and masks and everything like we should. And just making sure we're very careful and isolating. Mm-hmm. Most of the staff that are working are completely isolating. Mm-hmm. So,
talk about some of the challenge that the Chocolate Caper has endured over the last couple of months, whether they're, financial or health concerns. Maybe just give me more.
Our biggest one has been financial, certainly. I mean, going into the summer is always a period that slows down a little bit. Coming into this, our sales, without having people come into the store, dropped quite a bit. A lot of our business is people walking in. Mother's Day and Easter perked up things a little bit. We got sort of lucky that those holidays fell while everything was going on and people wanted to ship or deliver. And we had our bunny delivery this year, so that went over really well. But it's certainly, we've taken a big hit to our sales, and we're trying to still support as much as we can. So we've been taking advantage of some of the CARES Act provisions and the PPPs and that kind of thing, and mm-hmm. just trying to hang in there.
Mm-hmm. So what are some things that the Caper has done to help support the community in the last couple of months?
So we are continuing to donate our excess chocolate to the food pantry, mm-hmm. Which we always do. We're also donating 10% of our total sales to splitting it between Friends of the Oregon School District, which helps with food insecurity of families in the school district, and Neighbors in Need of Assistance, which can help with food, but also helps with sort of the bills that come up if you're struggling a little bit, an electric bill, a rent payment, whatever. Might come up and they're a bit more flexible. So we've been donating to both of them very consistently and just trying to make sure the people in the community who need it are supported.
You said you had some employees, one of them has some photography experience, one of them has some marketing experience, and you used their expertise to sort of help you ramp up your website. And so when we talked about successes like a week ago, that was one of them that you mentioned. So maybe share some of those details now.
Sure. We were lucky that we were able to pivot very quickly to online. Mm-hmm. The problem we had was our online website was not something we had focused on a lot in the past. Mm-hmm. So we have a photographer on staff who doesn't usually do photography, but she has a degree in it, specifically food photography. We have a former marketing director. We have a big skill set among our staff. So we've kept all those people on. And the photographer's been doing consistent photography of all of our products, so our website photography is now consistent and much better. The marketing person has been helping us with getting word out and just trying to draw people in and making them aware of everything that's going on. We've made a lot of changes to the website to make it easier to use. And we've just been able to leverage the resources we have in a lot of slightly different ways. Mm-hmm.
Then what are some of your hopes for the Chocolate Caper in the months ahead? Like, have you and your wife Elizabeth entertained any ideas for reopening, or when do you think that might take place?
That is a wonderful question. Everyone's dealing with all the unknowns right now. We're hoping that we can open by July, mm-hmm. And sort of return to business as usual, or the new normal, whatever you want to call it, since we don't really know what it's going to look like yet. But that will be very dependent. I mean, we're following a lot of the same metrics that public health is. So we're looking at cases that are happening, how the spread is happening, and just making sure we don't add any risk to that. We don't want any of our employees to get sick because that shuts us down, and we don't want any of our customers to get sick because we don't want to get our customers sick. So
And so that sort of that's a nice segue into my next question is like, what are some concerns? You know, there's some discussion, I think, of a second wave. I think especially, of course, with all the protests going on and things like that. You know, and what are some of your concerns in the months ahead as a business owner?
But definitely, as you mentioned, if there's a second spike, especially a second significant spike or one that leads to a stay-at-home order. Both because that's not good for the community. That means things are not going incredibly the way we want them to. But that will be a big hit on us as well. Our sales will just kind of peter out. And we're used to that, like I said, a bit for the summer, but it hurts a little bit. So I think my biggest hope is that going into Christmas, everything's done. I mean, if I'm looking out a lot, holidays are one of our biggest seasons, so I'm hoping by November things have settled out. That's my conservative hope. For right now, it's just that we're able to reopen and that we're able to keep an eye on the second spike is a concern. People getting back out and just not being scared to get out is a concern. So even as things open up, we're noticing there's not as many people walking around, there's not as many people shopping. And I understand that. I think that'll continue to be a concern. And then making sure we're doing everything we can in the store to control social distancing, to control sanitizing and things like that among customers, and making sure we don't have people exposing each other to risk in the store.
Okay. So let's backtrack just a little bit. For our viewers who, I mean, the chocolate caper is definitely well known, I'm sure, around the county and everything, but for viewers who are not familiar, give us some background about how you opened the chocolate caper and what got you into chocolatiering.
Sure. I actually got sick in 2012 and couldn't work for a couple years. And while that was going on and we went through our reserves and our savings, my wife started baking from home, and that very quickly spiraled out of control for us. And so we reached out to the chocolate caper about sharing kitchen space because they weren't actually even open in the summer at the time. And they said, well, what do you think about making chocolate? Because they were looking to retire. And we just synced with them very well in terms of our values and what we wanted the store to be. And when that happened, we apprenticed with them for 8 months after working out the details. And then we purchased the business from them in 2014. And then my wife runs production, and I sort of do the other stuff that comes up. I can make chocolate, but I shouldn't. And so I handle the business side, she handles production, and we've expanded a lot. So we've gone from one case and not a lot in the front of the store to a very full store where we're always looking for more space. Brought back a lot of products. We make praline, which is what we're known for. We have over 45 different kinds of truffles. We have all sorts of different dipped items. But it was a lot of happenstance, and that led to us taking over, and a lot of circumstances just lining up and the stars kind of aligning for us. Mm-hmm. And then our Sun Prairie store exploded. We opened a second store in Sun Prairie in 2017, and then when the explosion happened, it was right across the street.
Man.
So that
I'm
went
so
up.
Sorry.
So that's been some learning, but.
So you've weathered tragedies before.
We unfortunately are somewhat experienced in dealing with the unexpected. Uh-huh. We have definitely had that before. The explosion was when I was bowling, and the person working there came up and said, "Your wife says your store exploded?" And I just thought I misheard them.
Yeah.
And then a couple minutes later, it started showing up on the news and all that fun stuff. But yeah, we've gotten pretty used to trying to pivot and just take advantage of whatever avenues are available to us.
And so do you think that made you inadvertently, of course, a little bit more prepared for, March 11th when this whole thing was declared a pandemic?
Yes. I mean, leading into it, we had, some advance notice just with what was going on in February that something was going to be coming. So we were able to start preparing a little bit just from a planning. What do we do if things shut down? And then it helped us a lot with understanding insurance, understanding the programs that come out, the documentation we need. So we were able to respond very quickly to the stimulus and the different incentives that happened. And it just got us used to working leanly, but effectively still, and being able to cut down the staff in the store and still maintain productivity. And thankfully, in this case, we've been able to keep all our employees on and be paying all of them. But it's been learning as we go. Definitely, you know, every month I learn something new. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I think for other businesses, the big thing is to think about alternative avenues to what you can do. So if you normally have a walk-in retail store like us, you need to be looking at online, you need to be looking at curbside pickup, you need to be looking at the technologies that enable you to do that if you don't have them. They are worth the investment because it will work not just for right now, but as things return to whatever state they return to, those systems will keep working and people will keep using them. So that's a big thing. And then take advantage of the programs that are out there. I mean, there have been a lot, the PPP program for funding payroll and things like that, the SBA loans, the EIDL and EIDG grants. There's a lot of programs the government is doing and private groups are doing. Dane County has a grant program. Most of the media in the area are offering free advertising or advertising grants. So really look at and talk to other business owners about what they're doing to take advantage of those programs and make sure you leverage them as best you can.